Hello, how are you? Ignore that I already started this video laughing, okay? Today I'll be working on a complicated video, but I'll explain to you, okay? I'll explain to you. Not that what I did was complicated, you know, that part wasn't, but in this video I'll be trying art hacks! Except that finding art hacks was the most difficult task in my existence for some reason. Like, how do some artists find so many art hack videos? I could barely find any that were actually art hacks, you know, little tips. The only ones I found were for line art and some effects, I guess because people hate line art and want to make it easier, you know, so they want something, a little hack that makes their life easier in that sense, and they love effects and want to know new ones. But yeah, that's what we will be doing today. At the beginning, I imported an image of a little concept sketch I made in my sketchbook last month. And this hack is for brightening the picture. I imagine that this would be great for digital drawings specifically, but I'll use it here too because I can. I imagine that it makes the sketch more visible, right? What I found really interesting is that they used a divide layer mode for this. So they picked the background color, in this case the color of the paper, and colored the entire layer with it, added as a divide layer mode, right, clipped onto the image, and then it brightens the actual image there. So I found that actually really interesting and decided to investigate how the divide layer mode actually works, and I'll explain that in a bit. Right now, as you saw me do at some point there, because I honestly have no idea how the process of this video will turn out, because this one's crazy. So I imagine that I did line art at some point. There was one hack that helped thin the line art in certain parts using the liquify tool, but I don't really needed that. In fact, I find it easier to just erase certain parts of the line art if I want to make them thinner. Just in my case, it's easier that way, but I do thicken the line art in parts that I want the focus to be on, and after having that, I go to the next hack, which is how to get my line art to look better with one layer. They will once again use the divide layer mode. That one will just follow us around today, which is an interesting thing, because just recently I found out that the hard light mode was really good, so now we're learning divide layer mode, so that's great. You will use a desaturated color or plain up gray, that's what they recommend, and I do understand it now. They explain that the darker the color you choose, the lighter the line art. Then you will lower the opacity of that. Then you mess around with like hue, brightness, and saturation to get it to look how you want, you know, that sort of stuff. I do erase it in certain parts later on, like for example the lashes, so that there is a sort of gradient and so that certain parts of the line art don't stand out as much, which are in the shadows. But that's a thing for later. And the thing is, the divide layer mode is a color correction mode. It's great for brightening shadows that you want to look softer, to balance the color of an image, or to create an extremely bright effect like a crazy high camera exposure setting. That's why if you use white on a divide layer mode, nothing should technically happen, while black turns white, which I found really interesting, and I really want to mess around with that more in a future video, maybe. Maybe I'll like do an entire video solely dedicated to the divide layer mode. I can do that because I'm insane. I don't know why, but I always thought that it was an inversion mode, that you know, it inverted the colors of a drawing. But now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure there's an actual invert mode, so you know, I'm just being me as always, just kind of stupid. Then I had to paint my base colors. I had found another hack for coloring a base quickly, but with my line art, it wouldn't work since it has too many gaps. There is another thing I see artists do a lot, which is telling people to thicken the line art where the lines meet, which sure, it looks cute, which is fine with art, Not everything has to be done purposefully or with the entire effect of an environment in mind. Sometimes you just want something to look good, and that's okay. But if you do want to take purpose into the line art, I would not recommend that. Instead, I would recommend you to thicken the line art where you want the focus to be. In this case, I made the line art thicker around the hand that holds the coffee, all the way to the side of his face there, all in that side. Oh, also, I'm drawing my OC, the president of Zealia, my country I created for my stories, in case you're new here. I consider him my favorite drag queen because he dresses all pretty, like the Virgin Mary. It's like Damiano from Måneskin said, way back in high school when she was a good Christian, I used to know her, but she's got a new best friend. A drag queen named the Virgin Mary takes confessions. She's a 90s supermodel. In this case, he is our 90s supermodel. I could have sang that, like, way back in high school when she was a good Christian. But I'm not going to. Like, have you ever seen this guy's skinny waist? He's got that bob. He's our 90s supermodel, okay? So next art hack, photo bashing, which we might have just completely passed over at this point because I just yapped too much. So you all know I love matte painting / photo bashing because I still don't know the difference between those two. But I love doing that for the backgrounds. And in this case, we will do almost that. Almost the same thing. Okay, since his castle is also in this cathedral-like setting, I will actually follow the tutorial of this person. Almost to its essence, like the exact same thing. So I got myself some cathedral images, one for the window and one for the corner door thingy. We will erase and distort it to fit into the picture the way we need it to, so that it, looks like the background stuff. Then we will gradient map the image, which I found interesting. I've never thought of doing that. I've never actually used my brain in my entire life, but it makes so much sense to do that, so it fits the rest of the background colors. How could I not think of that? I would always just overlay it. I'm stupid. Also, sometimes I just actually use the image in itself and just paint over it. But yeah. Then they recommend you put the lightest color between the dark and the most saturated one when you are gradient mapping it. In my case, I did try that, but it didn't work in the end, so I'll change that a little bit so that it fits into my image specifically. Then you will put the layer mode to lighten, and boom. Fits in perfectly, like it was meant to be. Then they tell you to add shadows, but in my case I wanted the crazy bright window look, so I left it shadowless and will actually accentuate the light later on just to intensify it even more. I do add a moon picture as well for the background to further push the concept. Plus I made the canvas bigger so that it fits in, right? The scene I had in mind is him on a balcony drinking coffee with his plants behind him. Right, so that the coffee made sense, I needed a coffee table nearby. The moon is there for the environmental lighting and also to add drama to it. Which, the coffee table thing you will see later, okay? So after having the base of the background, I start painting because that's what I've been into lately. I've just been painting a lot. And you can see that in my videos. My last 2 videos? I don't know, I've just been crazy painting stuff. That's why I leave my line art sort of sketchy, since I know I can just paint over it later anyways to detail it more if I want to. If not, I'll just leave it as is. My sketches aren't really that like messy or, crazy. They're just the way they are. I do add the background texture of the bricks and whatnot. That one that is like behind him. There are like 2 images, the one of the window and the one like of brick stuff that is behind him. I do add that to the railing and overlay it so it has more texture and it fits in better. But later on I will paint that more so that it has more of a 3D effect, also to like accentuate the lighting of the moon and there and stuff, because I just couldn't do it at the beginning and I was like, well, if I can't do it now, I'll leave it for later, it's fine. For the bricks too, one other thing, since the image was very pixelated, right, I chose like a small little corner and the image was very small. I should have downloaded a bigger file size. Is that how you say that? You understand me, okay? We are communicating. I should have gotten the bigger file. I didn't. So I will just add like an oil painting artistic filter on it, and I posterize it a bit so that it looks more painted and fits in better. And I do paint over it too as well, so that it fits in even more betterly. Today I'm really good with words, holy moly. So I added a multiply layer onto him. And at this point in the time lapse, I'm sure we've passed that a long time ago. I add a multiply layer onto him, then I overlay? Yeah. I add an overlay layer and add like some colors, since I want this picture to be very purple and red. But I also wanted a slight little hint of blue hue coming as backlighting, so I do add that. Not just onto him, but to the entire background as well. But like the blue is just very, very minimal. Then I painted very messily his shadows to detail that a bit more. Like very big. I focused on like the bigger parts, and then I started actually detailing those shadows and defining certain parts on another layer. Mostly his shirt, hand, crystal arm, and face, since those are the main focus. While the hair and pants I've left more painterly, since I don't really want the people to focus on that. And if I wanted to push that even more, I could have blurred out certain parts of this drawing, including the background, so that the focus really catches. Is that the way? So that the focus is mainly on one part. To them, my brain is just very, very running around in many circles. Let's just put it like that. Where was I? Rendering? Oh yeah. So like, I did things very messily with the rendering and all, but that is fine because I knew that later on I would add textures which would help with that detailed effect. Adding textures is a very easy way to make something look very detailed without it really being like drawing each and every single individual part. I find that very useful. What I really tried doing here as well is making his coffee cup look small in his hand, which I hope comes across. I tried to do that since I was trying to keep in mind that this guy is like 7'5" for you Americans, which are the majority of people who watch my channel, right? So I have to speak in feet. No. He's around 7'5", around that height. Could be like a few inches less, or I doubt more. I doubt more, okay? I have to say it. Another thing with his height is that I always wonder what car he drives. But that's another conversation for another day. I must have already had this conversation as well. I don't know. Oh, another thing. You try to keep in mind how the environment reflects onto each other. As you can see here, I do add like the red light of the castle onto him, like slightly, along with other parts of the environment. Like the backlighting is sort of bluish, but like the main environment is purple, so everything has this purple hue. But since there are lots of red elements, specifically the window where there is actual light coming out, there would be like it would cast onto the objects. So I do add like a red hue to the drawing, and I do like add this line around certain parts, just so that he is more easily distinguished from the background, so that I do add like that focus to him in certain areas, as well as define certain shapes more, since some things do get lost a lot with the shadows and how dark they are, for example his hair and his pants. So I do add that, right? You know, actually now that I look at it, it has been a while since I actually painted a background like this. This is like half photobashed and half hand painted. I do enjoy making these little elements by hand though, like these objects. For example, the chair, the railing, and later on the coffee table too. Especially when I add these spiral effects. I love doing that. It's like one of the best things ever for me. One of my favorites. Perfection. I love that. I want to do that every single day. Last time I did that was with my Cheryu drawing, with the caged mind one, you know, where there's the bird cage on her head and whatnot. I love that, okay? I love that sort of stuff. And the Cheryu story, together with his story, are very similar in that aspect, except that this one has a lot... Will it be darker themes? I don't know. The Cheryu story is honestly also on the darker side of the thematics. But color-wise, this one is darker, but their entire color palette is pretty much the same, other than this story in itself has more turquoise-ish tones to it, while Cheryu's story is only red and purple. But yeah, I also added a... What did I add after the coffee table? Let me think. Hold on. Let me think. Okay. Oh yeah, I added the planters behind them, right? But I could have made them more interesting. Like add more texture and spiral parts to them to make them fit into this fantasy vibe I have going on here better. But I didn't do that. Why? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I could have. Like this, they just look like simple little planters, but not that it's bad. Those types of planters do exist, of course. I said that all wrong. Guys, I feel kind of drunk. But I'm not. I am not. Okay, I'm not. Stop. So after the planters, I do add a shadow over his face, which would be the plant's shadow. I knew I wanted a shadow to loom over his face to add like that drama even more so, because then there is like this very bright moon and his like shadow very dramatically, like he's just very melancholic and whatnot. Because if I add that, I can then erase it slightly on his one eye to make it shine more and show that his eye is red, so there's like this sort of dangerous thing, mysterious thing going on with him. One thing I should show more often with the red-eyed characters that I have is how dark they're supposed to be, because they're not supposed to easily recognize that their eyes are red. It's only supposed to shine red when light hits it. Also, have I ever explained why their eyes are red? Like the President, Selena, Rimu, those types of characters. So, their eyes are red because they don't have any color in their eyes. Their eyes just reflect the color of their blood vessels. Like they don't have anything that makes their eyes brown or blue or whatever other color that there is. So that's what happens. But in their case, I want their eyes to be like very, 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 very dark. So, as you can see, I have made a coffee table with the coffee mug holder thing and another cup. I added another cup there since he is talking to someone on this balcony who we are seeing the POV from. We are seeing the POV from this other person. If you know who the person is, congrats, you've been following me for a while, and I think that you can, you know, put very easy things together. These aren't very hard things to find out. I have a thing where I either show too much or too little with my stories. I have no in between. But yeah. We will see later though the actual line that he is saying, like what he is saying to the person. I will make a darker version of this drawing which will be story related and have him telling something. I even add cinematic borders to it and everything, like very fun stuff. So as you can tell by now, I couldn't find any art hacks for the rest of the illustration process. And I do differentiate art hacks from art tutorials. Hacks are just like fun stuff to add to maybe make your life easier or to add something different to the drawing. What I did find a lot is like the entire tutorial of the entire process of a specific artist. And I didn't want to do that. I want like some little fun stuff here and there. At least like that's how I see those two as being different. I do want to make a video at some point. Oh my god, that voice cracks crazy. I do want to make a video at some point trying out those tutorial images that are like, do this, not that, and apply it all to one drawing to see how it turns out. Also, can I just say, if you see me stop at any point of drawing Like in any moment of my time lapse, if I ever stop, that's probably me letting my cats either into my room or out of it. Just so you know, in every single video ever, like if you see me stopping, that's why. So after my overlay layers of textures and colors, which you will see here, I will do my next hack. Have you seen this image fly around? Yes. This picture, which tells you to merge all layers, copy and paste it on top, add an orange layer over that as luminescence layer mode, and merge those, then add that bright layer as hard light and just lower the opacity. Yeah, that's what we did here. If you understood that, you understood it. If not, I'm sorry. Now, one of the last hacks, we will add these white spots flying around, add chromatic aberration to it, a lot of that so that there are colors there, and then Gaussian blurred, which will give these cool lighting effects. Usually these are used for sunlight, but I wanted this moon to be very dramatic. And on a similar note, for the last hack, I actually lost a video for it. I'm so sorry. But you do these little squares and paint them as a rainbow and then change the layer mode to give a similar effect as the last one. I think that I added it as lighten, like most of these. With this entire thing, I used a lot of divide and lighten. But yeah, then I do add my own rainbow brush particles to really intensify the lighting here and add more of that rainbow stuff going on. Then we go into the story stuff, where I do horror art because I cannot be stopped. I add another merged image on top. I go to the value stuff, I have no idea what it's called right now. I think in most programs it's called levels, but I go crazy with contrast and saturation. I change all the accent colors to red, well, almost all of them. I break the moon, add an eye, I break it some more for texture. I also intensify the red in his eyes so that there's like just bright red, like glowing, like something is very bad. something is going wrong here. And then I break even more stuff actually. I think I also break like his coffee mug thingy, the thing where there's coffee in it. The coffee. I break the coffee. And then I think we are done. And I really like both versions of the drawing. It turned out really cute, if I have to say so. Well, one less cute per se, but you know, cool. Plus lure related stuff too, which I like a lot, and I love that. I do want to do this again at some point, since I feel like I failed this challenge. I just couldn't find art hacks no matter what I searched, and I need to redeem myself. Either way, I hope you have a nice day and night, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!